better. Ah, yes. Ah. I'll take the high road and you'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland afore you, and we'll and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Now, I'm not a Scottish laird, but if I was a Scottish laird, there's one car I'd have to have, and it'd be this, a Land Rover. The Land Rover is more or less unchanged since it was developed just after the Second World War, and the fact that it was unchanged was to lead to its demise, but also to the fact that it became a cult car. And if you wanted a car that represented the difference between the haves and have-nots, between the best in the English class system and the rest, then the Land Rover would be the car to have. It's the sort of car you could turn up outside the Dorchester in, especially if it's splattered in mud, and get out in full evening dress. And the only other car would probably be a Rolls Royce, because it meant that you had lots of acres and lots of time to enjoy the acres. But it was very uncomfortable to drive around in. So why was it such a sort of hit? You've probably seen or watching The Crown, and you can see there in Balmoral the royal family going around in these Land Rovers and wearing these barbers. And you think in the hail and the wind and so on, and you think, why is it that they put up with these terrible conditions? Well, one of the reasons, I think, is that if you've got inherited wealth and you've had everything done for you, in a way, you have to provide your own challenge, and you have to provide your own uncomfortableness, and that's why one of the marks of the aristocracy is that they have very cold houses, things don't quite work, and somehow people muddle through. It's not something the nouveau riche would understand at all. Well, a few years ago, Land Rover decided they could no longer make the Land Rover because the emissions were absolutely terrible. You couldn't sell it abroad because the crash testing and things, forget all that. And so they decided to discontinue it. And of course it had the effect, like anything, it's rarity, of everybody wanting to buy one. And so the prices of a new Land Rover, well, if you could get hold of one, were high, and if you need a second-hand one, nearly new one, was even higher if you get one quickly. Well, I managed to get one, and why did I want to do that? Well, we've been driving around in a Lexus, and it's one of these things about the company car thing again, which I had with my mother all that time ago. I remember with the Austin Maxi, I said, because I became a director of one of Polly's companies, a publishing company, chair actually, I was given a car as sort of payment, and said, what sort of car do you want? And for some mad reason I thought, what about the Land Rover? The last Land Rover I'd driven was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it had been sort of bequeathed me in a way by an old tutor at Wolverhampton College of Art, and I'd driven it to work once or twice. In fact, I paid for it, for a bit of money for it, because he wanted to get rid of it, buy a new one. And this thing, it did 10 miles to the gallon. It's unbelievably uncomfortable and terrible. And I said, why is that? He said, well, it's an old military one. It's an army one, and the military don't care about how much the fuel costs. Anyway, I got rid of that one. I gave it to a friend in Wales, and he ran it for a few years, and not very far, at 10 miles to the gallon. But I did think I'd look at going to a showroom and see if I get one of the last of the Land Rovers. And in fact, I found one. Somebody had cancelled an order, and I found it, and it was very expensive. But the thing was, talking about authenticity and making things uncomfortable, they'd tried to make it comfortable, and I'll explain why. What had happened was that people didn't buy Land Rovers to go across the Laird's land anymore, but as lifestyle vehicles to park in Chelsea and places like that, and show what sort of hip people they were. And so the back of this Land Rover was fitted out with sort of seats facing one another. You couldn't get anything in and out of it, and it was beautifully made. But to drive it was absolutely horrendous, I realised what a big mistake I'd made, and I thought, I can't face getting rid of this, so quickly. But I've got to, really. It's ridiculous, this is. But then I got the tax bill for it, because being a company car, the tax bill on this, because of its emissions, was absolutely horrendous. Thousands of pounds. It had to go. I still had to pay some money, but it had to go. But the good thing was, I could sell it at least for the price at least I'd paid for it, because everybody wanted uncomfortableness and this sort of like, sort of challenge and the past age as a sign that they were sophisticated people. It's funny, isn't it, how something like this, which was a working vehicle, could become a sort of like a lifestyle vehicle. And it is probably because it had been completely overtaken by events. It had been overtaken first of all by the Toyota Land Cruiser, which took that and actually could actually drive to the North Pole and back again, find its way back again on the South Pole and across the Sahara, which is more than a poor old Land Rover could do, even though in its time they were very robust and they did the business. But no longer. It was a car for aristocrats who, didn't really need things to work properly, who could be mistaken for the gardener when they're actually the Duke. It's funny, isn't it, how something which is authentic can end its life representing the inauthentic. And I didn't want to represent the inauthentic. Can you see me as a Scottish laird?